I would like to announce that a quorum is present, the meeting is duly called, and the notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. The time is 6 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Dr. Betty Bonner, Catherine Sells, Sheila Taylor, Allison Lasan, Michelle Alcatev, Dr. Stacy Barker, and Jenny Prosnick. I've asked board member Allison Lasan to lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, we gather here today with hearts full of gratitude for the opportunity to serve our community and its children. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we make decisions that will impact the lives of students, teachers, and families. May our discussions be filled with understanding, compassion, and a commitment to the well-being of every individual we represent. We also lift up Corporal David Harney, who recently underwent emergency surgery. We pray for his swift and complete healing. May you strengthen his body, comfort his spirit, and grant him the resilience that he needs during his recovery. Surround him with love and care and bring him back to full health soon. We also remember all of those who are hurt or are grieving at this time. May your comforting presence be with them, bringing peace to their hearts and hope for the future. Grant them strength and surround them with support and love. Bless this meeting, Lord, and help us to work together in harmony for the greater good. In your name we pray. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands. Our mission statement is engaging and inspiring learners and leaders. And our vision statement is all students are confident, equipped with the knowledge and skills to thrive and adapt for their future. Public comment is next on the agenda, and we have no public speakers. Moving on to our discussion items. The superintendent report. Dr. Rapp.
Madam President, members of the board, tonight I want to spend a few minutes just talking about what we know so far. As there's a lot of wheels turning, getting ready for the 89th legislative session to start in January. We have a placeholder for legislative items pretty much on every board agenda moving forward, and if we have up-to-date current events to report on, we can absolutely use those items for that. The House Public Education Committee does have a meeting scheduled on September 18th to discuss House Bill 3. They specifically plan on discussing the public school safety part of this bill and hearing about how that legislation's working out in schools, how has the implementation of that bill gone for people, and of course the House, I really appreciate, allows you to submit comments online. And so I asked Mr. Garrett to be thinking about what kind of comments might we want to submit about House Bill 3 when it comes to safety. Then recently, Speaker Phelan announced the hiring of his new chief of staff, and in that announcement, they talked about how they were going to have a strong focus for the 89th session on school choice and education funding, and they were going to collaborate closely with Governor Abbott, the Texas Senate House members, and Chairman Buckley, who's the chair of the House Public Ed Committee. Speaker Phelan's staff is all ready to work in these upcoming months to fine-tune his legislative priorities. So if there are things that we would like to provide to Speaker Phelan's staff regarding education, we definitely can put something together for that. And then we recently communicated to our elected officials. Of course, any time that we send a communication to the commissioner, we also send that to our elected delegation. We've written twice to Commissioner Morath about our concerns with the TEA Ed-Fi transition. Our largest concern is we are not able to successfully get all of our data promoted through the TEA process, and you can't really tell if it's coding issues with the vendor on the TEA side, or vendor issues, or there's something in your district with the customization of that product. And as you know, there's multiple customizations when it comes to vendor systems. So we're advocating for a safety net or some kind of hold harmless for districts for this first year of the use of this new system. The Senate Ed Committee, this actually came out right after we had posted the presentation in Board Book, so I added this morning. They are also meeting on September 18th at about 9 a.m. For the Senate, you need to provide your testimony in person or submit your written testimony in person. And just a reminder, the interim charges that they are looking into is reading and math readiness, testing reform, COVID-19 funding oversight. They want to really talk about how did school districts spend the money for COVID-19 and what outcomes did they see for kids, and then monitoring legislation from the 88th on school safety, library procurement, and high-quality instructional materials. And speaking of those high-quality instructional materials, the State Board of Education is meeting this coming week. People can sign up to testify in person, but they are one of the things that's on their agenda is a plan to vote on the instructional materials that are eligible for House Bill 1605 funding. It's still unfortunate that really money did not go to districts in the form of IMA for materials as it has in the past, and you have to adopt these specific state-adopted materials, whatever may be voted on here, to get additional funding for public schools. And then October 7th is the last day to register to vote for the November general election. And of course, a recap that we talk about all the time is that we still, in public education, face staffing shortages. We need compensation for staff recruitment and retention addressed. That would happen through an increase to the basic allotment. And the teacher vacancy task force reinforced all of those things that the governor convened. And that's my brief update.
Any comments or questions? I would ask Dr. Rapp for House Bill 3 for safety and security. Could you tell me what the delta is and what the state gives us for safety and security and what we as a district spend on safety and security?
Yes, Madam President. So currently we're spending about $6 million on safety and security to implement the requirements of House Bill 3. The state gives us $1.5 million. They increased the funding amount per student to $10 per student and then $15,000 per campus, and that's how we get the $1.5 million.
And then for the EdFi transfer, could you just speak a little bit more for those who don't quite understand what PEMS is and things of that nature and how that would affect our funding if that data is not loading correctly, what that looks like for funding for us?
Yes, Madam President, absolutely. So we have, Dr. Fitzhugh, about 11 PEM submissions, 13 PEM submissions that we do throughout the school year. And specifically, the data in those submissions is used to determine our funding. So for instance, our enrollment's probably one of the best ones. If we have student records drop off in the process of upload, which has been one of our larger concerns that we've been trying to articulate, the record is just dropping off. It's not bad data. We're not for sure why it's dropping off. So if out of 46,000 kids, we only have 1,000 records load successfully, we will only get funding for 1,000 students, even though we have 46,000 students in attendance. And when data drops off at this time, it does not generate an error message for a district. So imagine a PEMS person in districts looking right now through PDF reports line by line, trying to look at here's what I submitted, here's what is showing up. That alone could be a full-time job. And in many districts, that is not the only job these people are doing. So huge funding implications at stake if not all of your data records promote into the system.
Just because I know we've been on some of these calls, and we were one of the people. We are I don't know what a trial district or a. Is there a way when we have submitted, do we get a notification that our submission was received in full? Is there a way for us to know if it's? I'll be honest, on which end it is. Is it on their end? Is it on our end? Is it happening somewhere in that universe in between?
You know, and I'm going to ask Dr. Fitzhugh to elaborate on this as well, but one of the things I have learned from them that's concerning is you have different levels of errors. You have like a level 1 error, a level 1.5, a level 2. If something makes it all the way through the system, even if it doesn't make it correctly, it at least generates an error message. Those things you know about. What you don't know are those records that are dropping off, because that doesn't even generate an error because it never made it all the way through. And there's not a way for districts to have visibility. If it's a TEA coding issue between TEA and the vendor, we don't have any visibility into that problem, if that makes sense. So I'll ask Dr. Fitzhugh too to add on to that.
So one of the things we're noticing with when we get errors, or even when the data falls off of our report, we're able to see what made it through, and we're having to go back and compare to what we thought we sent in. So we're having to do a lot of comparison to figure out which records are missing, did they miss. Then the ones that dropped off, we're having to dig in and see, why do we think they dropped off? And so, for instance, we had some records that weren't going through because we had country codes and phone numbers. When parents enrolled, they put a 1 in front of their phone number, and that caused an error. We had another error with some students that were asylee refugee because TEA had not set up their parameters correctly, but we didn't know that was what was causing the error. So we have to go item by item, line by line, try to figure out what the commonality is between all of these records that aren't going through, then have conversations with, is this a vendor setting issue? Is this an us issue? Or is this a TEA issue? So you're trying to get all the right people involved, and we have multiple vendors now that are sending data. So when all of the records come in from CLI, TSDS, from us, from Munis, from Skyward, if they don't all align correctly, it causes an error too. So we're just chasing down what's causing issues to see how to get our data to go through.
And I think one thing that's important to your question that was asked is it would be helpful if you at least got a report that said you tried to upload 46,000 records, only 40,000 of them uploaded. We understand maybe they can't tell you why, and you're going to have to do the needle in the haystack search, but if they would even give some functionality that way. The other thing we've learned in this process is that in Texas specifically, it looks like we have different data standards that vendors are having to meet when it comes to this EdFi transition. Many of these vendors have been successful in other states, have gone successfully through an EdFi transition, but our TSDS system and some of those data standards in Texas are creating a little bit different scenario for vendors as well. And so that's been a learning curve we've had over the last week, I would say.
And just one other point, because when it comes down to, well, you must have incorrect data in your system. Last year, all of our data went through perfectly. We were able to, in the XML system, submit perfectly. That same data in the parallel system left us with thousands of fatal errors. Those are the ones we get messages back on. So, same data, two different systems, two drastically different outcomes. And so that's how we know there are some setup issues with this new system, because our data was previously able to be submitted.
And I just want to make sure that TA is aware of all of these issues, and they believe that in 3 months they will have them fixed.
I think we're doing everything we can to your point, as a parallel district and a pilot district to communicate all the concerns that we have and what we're seeing to the agency so that they are aware. We, on my phone call with the commissioner, I got no indication that he was willing to reconsider the timeline of implementation and was going to continue to move forward. And so that's something we will continue to communicate with him about what we're experiencing, and I know staff were even on a call today talking with the agency about what we're seeing.
Can I add one last thing? That TEA, as of Friday, turned off the system that allowed us to compare our data for what used to be submitted to what is now being submitted. So we used to be able to do kind of a side-by-side of, hey, in the XML system, this is where we are. That system is now turned off. So we are now 100% going with what goes into the advice system.
So are you saying we're giving data blind?
Yes, we're doing our best to try to do all the reporting we can and try to go through lots of PDFs to verify, but it's a lot of data elements to double check.
Thank you. All right, moving on. The technology report. Mr. Colbeck.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to ask Chris Langford to come up here as well. We have several items to go over regarding technology projects in the 2023 bond program. Some of these items are repeat items where we have multi-phases set up, which we covered last month as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris. He'll give you an update of where we are in the process for a few of these projects.
Thank you, Brian. First item is the construction delivery method for the WAN fiber ring Phase 2 project. We talked about this last month. This is one of the three-step process projects. And so this is you approved the construction of the WAN ring itself in June. And this is for the additional equipment and services that's needed to connect every campus onto the ring. And by way of reminder, some of those campuses will be ready before July 2025 when all the construction is going to be complete, which is why we're starting this now. So the two parts, I should say, of this project, the equipment and services is one. We talked about that in August. That does not require a three-step process, so we'll be bringing the final approval for that tentatively in October, but it might be pushed to November depending on how long it takes to receive all the quotes and get everything that we need for that. But the other portion, the electrical needs, that is the three-step process. You approve the engineering services in August, and you will see the approval for the construction delivery method next week as a consent item, and then we'll bring back the final project approval at a future board meeting. This next item is a new item. This is the engineering firm for the private LTE project. What this is for the installation of a new private LTE system, specifically at the high school campuses, to provide connectivity in areas that are either difficult or impossible to provide connectivity to in right now. Things like ticket booths, concession stands, band practice fields, baseball and softball stadiums, soccer fields, kind of the outlying areas at the high schools where we need connectivity and it's either difficult, impossible, or very, very expensive to provide that. So this is a three-step process project. This month we're talking about the engineering services, so you'll see that as a consent item next week, and then we'll bring back the construction delivery method and the full project approval at later board meetings. The construction delivery method for the Classroom AV Refresh project, we talked about this last month. This is, again, a two-part project, both of which requiring a three-step process. So last month you approved the engineering services for both the products and services, the products and services being the displays, whether that's a projector, a flat panel display, or something else. Once we get it quoted out, we'll determine which direction we're going there. And then the room kits, we need the electrical portion for those, which is why you're seeing two different items for next week. Next week's going to be the construction delivery method for both of these. They're both going to require different construction delivery methods, so we're bringing them as two different items to track them individually. And then in the future, you'll see approval for both when the final project approval comes through. And then finally, the construction delivery method for this cellular distributed antenna system. It's again a three-step project, and this is for the cellular DAS, the distributed antenna system that we're going to be putting into every campus to make sure that anyone can make phone calls in case of emergency from anywhere in the building where they do not have that capability now. So last month you approved the engineering services, and next week you'll see the construction delivery method come through as a consent, and then we'll approve the project, and we'll bring forward the project for approval at a future board meeting. One thing I forgot to mention on the private LTE. The private LTE, we weren't able to get the quote for the engineering services in time. There were some complications last week. So the private LTE, we're pushing the engineering service approval to October instead of September, but we can do the engineering service and the construction delivery method approval at the same meeting. So you'll see both of those as consent in October, and we'll talk about the construction delivery method as a discussion next month in preparation for that, for the private LTE.
Thanks, Chris. So if we look at what's going to be on consent for next week, obviously, the private LT will not be on there that we have listed as tentative, but the construction delivery method for the distributed antenna system, the fiber ring, the AV projects, both projects are going to be on there. And then if you recall last month, we shared information about the student information system. So next week, that'd be a consent item to move forward with Skyward on the student information system, their cumulative version. And then forecasting ahead out into October, we would be bringing forward the equipment and services for the data center fire suppression system. We've talked about this in the past, but this would be the stuff, right? It would be where we have the quotes back, and we'd be bringing back a recommendation for the equipment and services. We would also be bringing the construction delivery method for our private LTE, and as Chris said, the engineering would be in there as well. And then we're looking at bringing the engineering for our outdoor wireless project. So if you recall, I said at one point a few meetings back, when we look at what we need to really cover our outdoor areas, it's going to be a combination of LTE plus wireless. Sometimes it makes more sense to put in wireless because it's more cost effective. You have the infrastructure there. As Chris said, on LTE, those are going to be areas where it doesn't make sense to go wireless. So you really need both solutions to get the coverage that you need. We'll be bringing engineering forward in October for that. And then forecasting out for October consent, there we'd have our, potentially, this is a tentative one again, depending on if we can get our pricing back, but the equipment and services for the WAN fiber ring potentially would be October consent. The equipment and services for fire suppression, and then our construction delivery method, as well as obviously the engineering for the private LTE would be in October consent, and then the engineering for our outdoor wireless. So again, we have a lot going on for 2023 bond projects. Obviously, the nature of some of the projects being public works is what's bringing these forward as kind of three-step processes. So I know it's a lot of information each month, but that's why.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Colbeck.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Next up is the Finance Report, Part 1. Dr. Rapp and Mr. Fight.
All right, yes, as Mr. Rare is not here with us tonight, Mr. Fight's going to give an update on where we are with these construction items. And I just want to say, thank you so much for all of your support, of course, in getting everything through to get the summer projects done. You've seen the pictures too. We're looking forward to an exciting update next month with playground pictures and furniture updates and all of that kind of fun stuff, and looking forward to getting you all out to visit the work that's been done over the summer. So, but with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Fight for tonight's items.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rapp. Good evening, President Prosnick and the board. Excuse me. So tonight we've got a couple of items for the 2024 bond. The first one is a little bit of a follow-up from last month. So in August, there we go. Okay. So in August, the board approved the construction manager at risk selections for 3 of the 2024 bond first sale projects. There were actually 4 that we put out for bid. The Flower Mound High School Stadium 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair project did not have any bidders at that time. We did put that back out for bid, sent that to the 3 of the CMER firms. We received 1 bid back on that. The other 2 CMER firms were unable to take on additional work at this time. So the proposal we received included the brief narrative, the proposed personnel, methodology, financial safety information, and all that. We have come up with a recommendation for this project we feel is the best value. The bid evaluation information will be provided to the board prior to next Monday night's meeting, and the recommendation will be presented as a consent item. I should mention that even though we only received 1 bid, we have kind of done a little bit of an analysis comparing that pricing to similar projects of similar duration, and we feel that it is in line. Also keeping in mind that that 1 bidder who bid did not know that others weren't going to bid, right? So they still had a competitive bid that they submitted. We thought ourselves, should we postpone this, try again in the future next year when people hopefully have some capacity? We don't really feel like we would get any better pricing on the pre-construction fee and general conditions side. In fact, we would have an increase in the construction costs, so probably will be an increase to the project overall if we did postpone that. So our recommendation would be to proceed as with our 1 bidder. The next section here, I've been talking about this for a little while now. We've got a select group of projects that we feel like are prime candidates for civil engineering services versus the traditional architecture route. So I'll go through this list real quick. First one is a tennis court resurfacing. That's at Flower Mound, Marcus, and the Colony. Baseball, softball field lighting. That's at all 5 of our high schools. This is upgrading to LED lighting at those fields. Turf, synthetic turf at all of our baseball, softball fields. So that's 9 fields total. Obviously, we're excluding the Colony high school softball at this time, since it's already done. High school track replacements at Flower Mound, Hebron, Lewisville, and the Colony. Turfing all 3 middle school game fields. That's LHS Harmon, Griffin, and Shadow Ridge. Track replacements at Downing Middle School, LHS Harmon, Shadow Ridge, and turfing 1 practice field at all 5 of the high schools. I also do have on this list 1 project from the 2023 bond, but we feel like it is also a great project for civil engineering, and that's the Hebron High School traffic signal. So all of these projects you will see more information on prior to next Monday night's meeting. Just keeping in mind we have 4 civil engineering firms that were approved last month, and so we are spreading that work around amongst those some of those firms. Again, more information will come out that you'll see prior to Monday night's meeting, and this will be presented as a consent item for approval next Monday night. So next steps on the construction side. In addition to these 2 items that I spoke about tonight being on the consent agenda next week, we also have one from the 2023 bond, will be the approval of the Arbor Creek Middle School interior bleachers. If you recall, in the board updates, we had some purchasing issues. The vendor that we had originally had approved was no longer available on the co-op that we had selected them on. So we've now found the right vendor to go with, and we'll be presenting that next Monday night. In October, couple of discussion items. We're going to bring the architect, Stan Tech, in here and kind of revisit that airflow study for the West Side Aquatic Center. They'd like to kind of show what the results look like now that we have the evacuation system in there. I think we'll be very pleased. We'll also have some construction delivery methods for some of these 2024 bond projects that I mentioned tonight. We want to get with the civil engineers and kind of discuss what the best construction delivery method, in their opinion, would be, just to make sure we're on the same page. And then Dr. Rapp mentioned I will also be providing a board update for the 2023 bond. So all the activity that we had this summer, just come in and present some nice pictures for you. So, and then in October, the one consent item that kind of comes from that last slide would be those construction delivery methods for the 2024 bond projects. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Ms. Lasan.
Thank you, Mr. Veit. I appreciate that. I'd like to circle back to the Flower Mound High School Stadium 20-year refresh. Now, how many of these are we doing? Are we doing 4?
In this bond?
Yes.
These are the last 2. Flower Mound and Hebron are the last 2. We did Lewisville and the Colony in the 2017 bond, and Marcus is not ready yet. It was actually built, I think, in 2010.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So.
And with that, I should mention, this is not similar to the Colony and Lewisville, as in we're not tearing down the press box and rebuilding a new one. This is a true 20-year refresh of a 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair project of the press box itself and the concessions and restrooms.
Okay, including the okay, it's just, so we will do one more. So we'll do Flower Mound and Hebron.
Yes, ma'am.
And when are we going to do Hebron?
So the board approved that one last month.
Okay.
So same time frame, hoping to start that next summer and get it done for football season.
And did we have any trouble finding a CMA, or are we not that far on that one yet?
I mean, that's what this actually is
For
the
Hebron,
CMAR.
but for Hebron.
Same thing. We actually had one bidder on that one as well.
Okay.
And it was the company that is doing the 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair at the main high school campus. Similar to this one, you'll see this is the same vendor that is doing the 20-year life cycle at Flower Mound.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to go like a roundabout way,
No, it's
but
okay.
I guess that's kind of what I was getting at,
Yes.
is this a problem? Is it just because it's in Flower Mound?
No.
Just
No, I think I mentioned
curious.
last time,
Amazing.
and I've talked to the vendors, and there is some bid strategy involved, and I think, they were going after the aquatic center and decided if they had got that, they wouldn't have the crew available to handle the stadium. They did not get the aquatic center, so now they have that crew available. So that's kind of where, again, kind of the bidding strategy that they go through when they decide what they're going to bid on. So.
I get it. I was just curious.
Sure,
about that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Taylor?
Just a clarification on the Flower Mound project. It went out for bid twice. The first time, no bids, and the second time, is when we got the one bid.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have done a comparison, an analysis of where the pricing is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then my other one, was more of a comment. I was happy to see the track replacements. I know we're just at the civil engineer stage, but as someone who had a child running track at the Harmon, it was dangerous. So I'm just happy to see that and thankful to the voters for voting for the bond package.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Fite. Moving on, the Chief of Staff report. Dr. Miller.
All right, good evening. So tonight we're going to provide an update. We had 2 of our efficiency committee meetings in August. So just to recall that the budget reduction guiding principles brought us to the need to create this committee in order to look at efficiencies. And then so the committee was charged with looking at attendance and building capacity and efficiencies to either recommend retirements or adjustment of boundaries based on their findings. So we had, we're going to have 6 meeting totals. We had meeting 3 and meeting 4 in August. We looked at the remainder of our efficiency criteria in meeting 3. And then meeting 4, we did a tour of some facilities that were selected by the committee. And then we did an efficiency assessment on all schools that we'll be using for our next meeting. So some talking points from meeting 3 were we looked at the facilities assessment study, that it provides objective data for planning for future facility needs and timelines. And then for our operating cost, we included in the operating cost things that we would not have to have cost to if we close that campus. So utilities, insurance, administrative costs, and direct support for students. That does not include teachers, aides, that kind of thing, because that would move with the students. And then Mr. Rare did an estimate cost for each level, and that's how we determined the operating cost average for the different levels, and that's what we use to assess them for operational costs then. So some takeaways from that meeting were running and maintaining school buildings is expensive. So that was a good takeaway. And that there is a need to reduce building space to maximize efficiency. And also they saw lots of redundancy in different services that we're offering. It costs a lot more to operate a building that has less students. And there's a big variation in the operating costs per student per building. The less students you have, the higher it is to operate on that campus. And then they really want us, just what's the number you want to look for so that we can give a recommendation. And there's lots of data and variables you have to consider when you're looking at retirements or boundary adjustments. So it's not a simple decision to make with one number that we're looking at. So then meeting 4, so what we did at the end of meeting 3 was we said, okay, tell us your top 4 choices of campuses that would help you to better understand before you make these decisions. And then we took all of those choices and we looked at, there was really a line of the top 7 campuses. Because we were trying to achieve it in one night, we couldn't go across town. So we took those and we put them into 2 different tours that they could go on for meeting 4. Those were the choices. Lakeview was also in that top choice, but we had middle school open house that night, so we were going to let open house be. So we weren't going to visit them at that time. So the committee then chose tour 2 to go on for meeting 4. So that's what we did, and we went and toured those schools. And then when we came back, our landing spot was at Creekside. So when we came back, they divided up into teams, and they took the efficiency criteria and they did an assessment on each campus based on the criteria that we learned from meeting 1, 2, and 3. And they haven't seen that data yet, but what we'll do for our next meeting, which is next week, because BB and Lakeview were the top 2 campuses, we do want them to have an opportunity to see them. So For next meeting, we will go to both of those schools so that they can see them. And then this is fake data, so don't analyze this data. This is just fake, so you can see what's going to happen. But based on their assessment last time, those on the left are your key indicators of efficiency. That's what that efficiency framework was. And so the top 4 are really the key indicators. We will take each campus and see how many of those key indicators they have. So in this fake data, you see Campus 1 has 0 of 4 efficiencies, where Campus 3 has 4 out of 4. So this would be one feeder pattern. They will look at a feeder pattern, elementary and middle, and then make their recommendations for each feeder of either closure or adjustment of boundaries. Then we will take the recommendations from meeting 5 and mock up some, here's what it might look like based on your recommendations, and get some feedback on that at the next meeting. So they're already asking questions about, so what happens if we do suggest a retirement of a school? So we wanted to provide them some guiding principles. These we drafted from either practices we have done in the past or ones that we have found from other districts that really made sense for us. So we wanted to share those with you tonight to see if you had any feedback on these that we will then share with the committee. So we have them by cornerstone. Of course, the instructional supports and programs follow the student to the new school, as well as any supporting programs like CIS, providing students the opportunity to visit with the counselor and the new school prior to the movement to the new school, and then providing resources to parents regarding how to help your child navigate through change. Then resource stewardship is that all staff at schools that are being retired would maintain positions within LASD, and that they'd be able to indicate choices or the preferred option for where to work, and we would honor that as much as we can. And then utilizing procedures that we've done in the past when we've retired a campus with our staff. Then for community, honoring the traditions and the history of the school. It reminds me of like how the Rice Parade moved from Hedrick over to Vickery, so make sure we honor those during retirement process, and then if we can move over it, and then plan events and opportunities to welcome the new families to the new school. So that is it. Questions and feedback on those?
Ms. Taylor.
I just want to say publicly again, I didn't get to say so at the meeting. Obviously, we probably weren't supposed to be talking anyway, but to thank the members of the committee, because that's important work, and we're asking people to come pretty late, after work to take those tours, and they took their work very seriously, and I was just really impressed. I was really impressed, Dr. Miller, with how the meeting was run, the directives that you gave them, and just really everything that happened that night when I was there. You had mentioned, I thought you mentioned 7 schools initially, but then I heard 5.
So we toured 5 of the top 7.
Okay.
So we didn't tour Lakeview because they were having open house.
Okay,
So that's
and
6 of
BB
7.
Owens. Okay.
And then, BB Owen, yes, and then BB Owen, which is the 7th one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for the guiding principles, I totally agree with that, and I'm assuming, I wasn't here, but I feel like we've had at least some retirements in the past, and that we followed sort of the same strategy, but would also ask that we consider a strong communication plan and strategy, which I'm sure we probably will around that if they were to get to that point with their recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Sells.
And yes, we have retired schools since Ms. Prosnick and I at least have been on the board, and Ms. Lasan was just coming on, I believe. And so some of these things we've learned because it had been a while. And I just wanted to concur, and always, even back then, that the communication is really key. And it's not only key with our students, but sometimes even more so and foremost with our staff of these schools. And I think sharing with them the work that the committee has gone into, that this isn't a decision that we're looking for their recommendations. And so I just wanted to just say thank you too, because it's work. We all around this table and everybody here that's with staff, we take time away from our family in the evenings, and they've seen a little glimpse, I think, of what we do and what we're charged to do, but it's also giving them a voice. And I just wanted to say thank you to them for the time that they've committed, but also for sharing. The night I went, it was a great learning. I went one of the first nights, and it was just the information they had already been given was very eye-opening to them. They had no idea. And I know that I've run into committee members in our community that have shared, and it's a great learning curve, but wow, what a powerful and meaningful one. So thank you all for everything you're doing in those meetings in providing the information that they are asking for. So thank you.
I want to thank staff for providing such great information. Mr. Kaj provided great information. Mr. Rare provided great information. The facilities report made an appearance. My favorite document. The one thing I would add is that no decisions have been made, and the decision actually resides with the board, and we are looking for input from our community because they are our partner, and we value their input, especially on serious topics like this. But no decisions have been made. That is something I clearly want to communicate. It has not come to the board. No recommendation has come to the board. We're in what I like to call information finding and gathering and looking for recommendation. And I appreciate your work with the committee as well. So thank you. Moving on, accountability and evaluation report. Dr. Fitzhugh. This should be exciting.
Okay, this evening we're here to look at our House Bill 3 as part of the 86th legislative. I realize there's several House Bill 3s now in listening tonight. This is the 86th legislative session that talked about our board outcome goals. And so tonight we're just going to revisit them. We kind of talked about them a little last spring. But each of our campuses adopts a reading and a math goal in elementary, and then our high schools adopt a CCMR goal. We've provided you with an update about our House Bill 3 elementary reading and math in June, but I'm going to do a little bit of a CCMR catch-up, and then we'll talk about the goals for this year. So these were our 5-year goals that we had on file for last year. And when you look at our actual data, the way that it has turned out, you can see the areas there with 2024 in green were the areas where we met our target. This is a very lagging indicator. So our 2024 data is based on the class of 2023. This is an area where we have worked really hard to make some new changes and implement new things, and we will slowly start to see the impact of those. But this is where our data was. And so I just want to highlight for you that over the course of us having these goals, we have gone and seen growth. We went from 80% with our all students up to 85.9%. And so I've highlighted there's a few different pieces. So while we might not be meeting all of our targets, we have seen growth in a lot of our student groups, and we're continuing to do different things in order to see more growth. Some of those pieces that we're implementing here, we've discussed over the course of last year. We're starting to implement TSI for all of our students as a part of course completion with English 3 and Algebra 2. We've had a lot of discussion about CCMR versus endorsements because the endorsement doesn't necessarily align with the CCMR indicators. And so counselors are starting to have conversations when we look at students with how do we best help students be ready for their future. There is a little bit of discrepancy with CCMR and NCAA, and so we're currently taking those on a case-by-case scenario basis. Counselors are working with personal graduation plan meetings, trying to help our students make plans and be prepared. We are working really hard to develop tracking systems because this can be a little bit of difficult thing to track because there's so many different ways that students can be CCMR ready, and so we have to be able to work with students as their plans change. And then we're also working with our career program to make sure that the middle school students are prepared and know options at the tech center, so they're going to do 8th grade field trips. We're reviewing courses. We're looking at how we make sure that each of our high schools have pathways that allow students to be completers and have certifications. And then they're expanding the pilot for middle school course, career, and college exploration. So when we look at the updated goals for 24-25, we presented that we updated our 5-year goal last year. We extended it out to 27-28. We presented these goals as part of the board meeting in April 29th, so no adjustments have been made from what we presented at that point. The campuses have gone in and worked on their goals is probably the biggest difference that has happened. Campus-specific goals were provided to the board as part of your documents. We did make a few changes this year. So we had all of our campuses set a minimum threshold for all of our student groups of 60%. And then we also extended how we were looking at our different student groups. So before it was if you had 25 students, that was a student group, we lowered it to 5. So our campuses have goals for a lot more different student groups this time. So this is the chart that was provided in April for you guys as well. It's highlighted there for 26, 27, and 28 because we're looking at, are we staying with our current instrument for assessment, or are we going to make a change? That's part of the long-range plan, one of the things we're looking at for the future. There's the math goal, and then here's our CCMR goal as well. One of the things when it comes to CCMR that's important to know, because it's lagging, TEA is also rolling out a change in terms of what is CCMR ready. So right now, that class of 2023, which is part of this accountability year, they were expected to earn an IBC, and then some of those IBCs are sunsetting. That's a certification. The class of 2024 will be part of next year's accountability, so they're already gone. They're having some sunsetting courses, and they have to have at least one CTE course. But that class of 25 has to be a concentrator, and then the class of 26 has to be a completer. So our campuses not only are dealing with constant changes, we also have students that are on a variety of different pathways. So our current seniors have to be concentrators, but our juniors have to be completers, and the IBC list is different between them as well. So it's a lot to keep up with and a lot to track. And so that's what we're really working hard to develop tools to support our campuses with that and trying to help them see the different options that are out there.
So as an example, and I know I write about CCMR to you all in my updates, but you take a course like fashion design that was just perfectly okay for class of 2022. With the way things are changing, it might not continue to be a viable option by the time you get to the class of 2025. But so that's very confusing to families and kids who really enjoy that course and think things are going well, and they are going well, but that's what's causing us to have to evaluate things as you're really kind of running parallel systems for classes of kids.
And with that, are there any questions about our board outcome goals?
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I love how you just look over here at me for presentations by Dr. Fitzhugh. So the first thing that I want to say is going back to our final numbers in CCMR, this is a big celebration, 6 percentage points, essentially, in all students' growth. And as you mentioned, I want to emphasize this, if you will. It's not just maintaining or adding. The bar gets a little harder each year because what it takes to be CCMR gets a little harder each year. So we go from a list of IBCs that includes many different things. Then we narrow that list of IBCs. Then we add in that there has to be an aligned course. Now we're adding in that there has to be an aligned pathway of courses, or what's called a program of study. So it's not just about maintaining, it's about continuing to increase our practices to align with what is considered to be CCMR. And I know and I see all of the work that's going into that. The other celebration that I want to point out, look at our special education numbers for CCMR. That is a 14 percentage point increase from 2020 to 2024. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And we have a number of families who come to LISD specifically for the services that we provide for our special education students. Not only are we graduating them at high numbers, we're making sure that they're ready for whatever next step comes for them. That's phenomenal. So, of course, this is one of my, passions is CCMR. So I appreciate the work that is being done. And of course, I'll continue to push those practices to make sure that as those requirements get harder, that we make sure that we do everything that we can so that our students are prepared for what's next. Thanks.
Anybody else? I have a question about, I'm so sorry, Ms. Taylor.
I just wanted to say I had a comment. I'm just appreciative of the goals by campus. When I start clicking on that, I think that is very important and helps us track where we might need intervention at the campus level. So I just wanted to thank you for the data, to use your word.
I have a question about the college career exploration course at middle school. So we have it piloted at some of our campuses. So have we seen what is that at 6th, 7th, or 8th, or do you know? And if you don't, I'm happy to get that information later. It's at 6th and 7th right now. So we don't know what that actually looks like for high school yet. Okay.
Right, we don't know the
impact of having that available.
That is one of the things that we're really working on, is looking at how each of the things we're doing is impacting our data to see what's working and what's not, because we're doing several different things this year, and the ones that are yielding the most impact are what we would like to continue. My hope is they all have large impact.
I hope they all have an amazing impact. Thank you very much, Dr. Fitzhugh. Next up, the Chief of Schools report, Ms. Litchfield.
Good evening, President Frosnick, Dr. Rapp, and the board. We're here tonight to talk to you about the professional learning plan for this upcoming school year. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Roden to do all things wonderful with the professional learning plan. So,
thank you. Good evening, everybody. We're here once again to go and look through the professional learning plan for the year. Like always, we review it and update it as needed to reflect the long-range plan and our campus improvement plan and our strategies that we're implementing. So the purpose of the professional learning plan is to support the growth and reflection of practitioners to achieve our LISD vision, mission, and goals, and to connect our curriculum and instruction to impact student learning. And of course, we always make sure that it is aligned and ongoing and impacts our student learning and obviously professional growth. Just a little bit of background from previous years is that the Senate Bill 1267 requires the board to annually review State Board for Educator Clearinghouse regarding best practices and industry recommendations. And so what we had to do previously was actually to list those specifically out in our professional learning plan. The great thing is that we were already doing them. They just weren't specifically listed. So we went and we added those. And also the great thing is that we're actually going above and beyond what was expected of us. So up there it's listed the different professional learning things that had to be included based on the clearinghouse, which we were already doing. And then every year we work with all the various departments on specific needs for LISD that help support other areas for learning that we want all our staff to also participate in. So it's reviewed yearly and updated yearly. So really, the changes this year were very minimal to our plan. They were made based on the long-range plan and obviously our current strategies as we're looking at those every single year and updating them. So our biggest updates included a greater focus on intentional job-embedded learning and to have greater impact on growth, increased opportunity for feedback to drive decision-making and learning, a focus on scorecards and campus priorities to move campus and district goals, and working with campuses to develop a comprehensive professional learning plan for their staff so that it is in alignment and helping to support move their goals forward strategically. And then we're excited to add our expansion of our new teacher university to provide year 4 for teachers, and this is going to support teachers as leaders, which will kick off this month, which we're really excited about, and already have multiple staff members that are signed up to attend. So we're excited to see how that will impact campuses moving forward as well. So the actions that we took was that our plan was distributed to the advisory committee for review and feedback and input, and changes were presented to the committee of the few that we had this year, and the feedback was that no changes were recommended at this time. So it was pretty easy. So
Any questions or comments? Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to say I appreciate what you listed here in the updates included. You can tell that this is really research-based and driven by what is good for adult learning, particularly the intentional job embedded. We know that one and done professional learning doesn't work, right? So we've got to make sure that that is an ongoing and continuous process. And so I really appreciate that that is the focus. And then, of course, the focus on the scorecards and campus priorities. It has to go all the way from the very, very top with Dr. Rapp and Dr. Fitzhugh through the principals, as we know that that's been happening, and Dr. Miller and Dr. Fitzhugh have been sharing that, and then it gets woven into the professional learning that happens for all of our staff members. So thank you for those foci.
Thank you.
Ms. Sells.
Well, I always say that this is just one of our strengths. I mean, this is just by key. And what better way to be an example to your student who is a learner than to be a learner yourself, and for that continued growth. And I will tell you, for those of us that get to sit on a little bit of this, it's phenomenal. You all do such a great job of addressing what needs to be addressed and where it needs to be addressed and who it needs to be addressed to. But to just give that love of learning, most teachers have loved to learn along the way. It's many of us up here are, because this is everyday learning experience for us also. But it's just key for them to set that example and to bring those new ideas and just what you can learn from each other too is just so instrumental. And just thank you all for everything that you do, and thank you for letting us participate the few times that we have been able to. So thank you.
Thank you. We love it. And I just want to thank all the departments. We've really worked collaboratively with all of them this year to work intentionally to outline the plan to support both staff and administrators. So they've all been instrumental in helping be very intentional with that to support the learning goals. So I appreciate all of their support as well.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Next up, Student Services Report. Mr. Kaj and Mr. Colbeck.
Good evening, Madam President and Board, Dr. Rapp. We're bringing before you a discussion item surrounding bus video components and our efforts surrounding that. So through the work with Colbeck and his team, are we dueling here? That would be a no. You got it? Collaborative effort with obviously video being in the technology world and now student services over the busing. We're bringing this forward for discussion. As you all know, our buses have video capabilities on there, and there's always those times that we need it for to review behavioral incidents, driver compliance, safety and security around the community. There's a lengthy process that goes into receiving that video currently as it is installed on our buses. They're time sensitive, these requests many times, whether it's for an immediate action that needs to be taking place, immediate corrections, grievances. So once again, the current practice is that there are hard drives installed on our buses with multiple camera views. There's a request from the campuses or somebody else, a parent or another administrator, for viewing of a footage on a certain bus. So that's emailed or communicated to student services. Then we get with the bus company. The bus company then has to physically pull the hard drive off of that bus to receive that data. And it's an SD card, and you've all seen them. They're becoming relics across the technology world. But so they pull that out, and then they have to insert it into a device in the bus barn, download the video, hoping that the SD card is actually working for us to receive that video. It can only happen at the end of the day. When that bus is returning back to the bus barn, the footage is then downloaded, compiled, shared with student services so that we can review it, and then we pass it on to the different individuals. Once again, there's times that SD card is not actually working, and we don't know that until we pull that video. So the technical overview part of this, so the solution includes now changing from an SD card to a cellular card that will be installed into the existing video recording hardware on each bus. These cellular cards will enable video footage to be viewed throughout an online portal, so something a little more up to date, readily available to the administration. Not all the archive video is stored on the online system. Only video that is marked to be moved to the online system will be the other video stored locally on the bus, and we can get more into it. Colbeck, do you have anything you want to add on that?
I just want to add, as Jeff was talking about, with SD cards, they can be problematic where they fail. So one of the benefits in this particular system, having a cellular connection, there's also essentially monitoring. So if you have, let's say, a camera feed's not broadcasting, a camera's not accessible or the storage isn't accessible, you'd be able to see that from a central location. Right now, we don't have any of that ability.
So another key component to this new upgrade or that step forward in our technology world is that the staff, bus driver, bus monitor, can then activate the cameras for it to be marked so that it's easily viewed and readily available for administration to look at a specific incident that the bus driver, the bus monitor, is wishing to record at that time. Once again, it's uploaded as soon as possible. No more waiting until 5 o'clock, 5:30 for that bus to return back to the bus barn, and then for the bus SD card to be pulled. And then with this component, there's also some capabilities to have some live feeds on the bus as well for us to monitor situations as maybe they're brewing or maybe that's brought to our attention. Once again, the benefits of moving from the SD card to the cellular card, live streaming capabilities, less cumbersome of a process to gain that footage, timely. It's uploaded as soon as it's marked on the cell card, and then live feeds can be seen at all times through that online system. So once again, just taking that next step for our busing, our students, and our community, our families, to ensure that safety is happening on those school buses. So with that, we'll take any questions.
Are there any questions? Ms. Sells?
Yeah, first of all, how do we notify parents of kids who ride on the bus that their kids are that we have the capability of videotaping what is going on the buses? Do we notify?
I will have to double check that, but I believe it's in the bus contract that there's video surveillance on our buses, but we can find that out to see exactly how it's communicated with families.
I know on the side of the bus it does say video recording in progress. There's a little sign on there, but as far as, I think your question more specifically is for your ridership, are they informed that we have video, right?
And
I'm not sure the answer to that.
Parents are, if it's just embedded in something. I wonder how many issues might be avoided if a parent actually understood and was able to have a conversation with your child. And so just wanted to put that out there as forefront. When you talk about the video being stored, what are we talking about in capabilities of either storage?
Yeah, this is really what we would call kind of in the technology world a solution. And this solution includes the cellular, the SIM card, as well as cloud video storage. So when video is uploaded, essentially it's going to be uploaded to their cloud video platform, which is accessible, for our administrators that have access to it. That said, I want to be clear, this is not uploading all video. It just can't, right? I mean, you're talking about massive amounts of video, right? So when Jeff was talking about a marker, a driver basically, if an incident happens on the bus, there's a button, right, Chris? There's a button that they can press, and there's a lead-in, a marker, a couple minutes before that happened and after, and off of that marker, it's going to grab that video and put it up into the cloud. Or if there is video on the cards yet, right? So if something happens outside of it, like that happened earlier today, let's go and grab that video from this mark to this mark. It can actually grab it, upload it up to their video cloud.
Okay. And then that brings me to something else. So this is going to a cloud. How secure? Where does that security fall within that?
Yeah.
And then also, are we changing the way we're training, or we're asking the drivers to be trained?
As far as the training, it will take a training effort about the button or to mark the video. Many times there's not that need. We just are told about it maybe the next day. Parent comes in and files a complaint, or there's an issue. Then we would have to wait a full day for that bus to get back into the bus barn to pull that video. So really the only new training piece is that the bus driver or the monitor can push a button to mark recording time on a video.
And on the security side, this is right now we have the hardware on the buses. So when we bought the buses, it has the video, has the cards. It's essentially our stuff. What we're going to have to do on this is put in a data privacy agreement with this vendor. Now, we haven't done this at this point. Obviously, we were debating even pushing this another month, but ultimately, Jeff mentioned time is of the essence. We felt like there's a lot of benefit of trying to get it on this month. So what we'll do with this being potentially approved item, we'll be working with that vendor to sign our data privacy agreement and talking about ownership, access, and the security items that we look at when we work with a third-party vendor.
And the last thing was, I just want to make sure that our students whose parents indicate that they don't want photographs or video for security and safety reasons, that somehow we're making that connection so that we're never, if we ever get a request for video, I know that you should be only able to see your child or what's going on, but just make sure that we double check that and have those processes in place. And that's that's
a very good question, and really the same premises follow with the bus video as they do in our buildings.
Right.
And so, as we gather data for investigative purposes or things of that nature, we don't share that out. We don't copy it and email it out. We don't package it up and give it to somebody. So we're very careful with viewing of the video. We usually get guidance from Bay's office, and we make sure that the campuses understand what they can and can't do with the video. The same would apply to any videos that we have currently using on our bus systems, which we've had video for several years.
Yeah, and thank you. And I know kind of how that process, just having, following certain grievances that we've had before, but just wanted to make sure that parents are aware that your child can be videoed on that bus, and that if you're concerned about it, maybe you need other options, or maybe if your child is a child that's going to create problems on a bus, maybe you need to have strong discussion and not put them on there. So, okay, thank you.
Dr. Bonner.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. Mine's very brief. Mr. Kosh, what's the delta between current costs and the anticipated costs for this? Do you know off the top of your head?
I do not know right off the top of our head. I know that There's more information coming, I think, from the procurement office on that. So I'm not sure what it cost for when we bought the buses for the current SD card setup. But obviously, with all of the new technology, there is going to be an increase, one with probably a charge for setup, installing it, and then moving forward with probably a yearly subscription.
Yeah, okay. I'd sure like to know that, simply because we're in a budget deficit. I'm sorry if I stole your question, Ms. Taylor. I'm so sorry. Okay. Would you like to do the second half? I'll defer. Okay.
Great minds think alike.
The other thing I would just want to throw into the mix here is I would not be in favor of spending land funds on this, but rather pull from the unencumbered bond funds. I noted that it was either or, and I would not be in favor of that. Thank you.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. How long would we have to grab video? For instance, if this is something that, we find out a month later, is that video gone? Is it, like, what is that lag time that we have?
I believe we have somebody with some knowledge about
excellent.
that coming up. Like in our buildings, there's a expiration date that we can have, and I'm sure very similar to that in this situation.
Yeah, in talks with the vendor, they're saying that at least 30 days is what we'll have. Each camera will have its own, or each bus, each LTE card will have its own amount of storage, but there will be some that will use more and some that will use less, so it's really a pooled amount of storage. So as long as we're not going over that pooled amount of storage for all 285 buses, the footage can be stored. Really, we could set it for 60 days, 90 days. It just depends on how. We won't know that for sure, but they say that in other school districts that they've used, they've had at least 30 days worth of footage that they can store in the cloud.
Thank you.
Ms. Taylor.
And just more of a clarification point, I think Dr. Bonner asked this question, but I was wanting to know, was there a chance to use bond funds? I feel like that was part of your question. Just make sure you ask the question. Okay.
I believe all revenue opportunities will be discussed. And,
okay.
That's obviously the deficit weighs heavily on this versus the safety and security. So I think all avenues are going to be discussed.
Yes, and in board book for, as you're looking ahead to Monday night, you've got information about pricing and cost. We're looking at this solution for 3 years, 5 years. So, we talked a lot about trying to be mindful that the technology will change a lot on us again, and so not really over-committing to too long of a time frame. So the 5 years allows us to maximize the use of bond funds, if that's the desire of the board, or the land sale money, as we referenced in the item. But it allows us also to incorporate the service costs, the cost of the equipment, and those kinds of things, so that there's very minimal cost to the 199 budget for this purchase by being able to do that, if that makes sense.
I have a couple of questions. You talked about live footage. So is there an expectation that someone is sitting there watching this live footage from buses?
Not an expectation, but if we get a notice that an incident is happening on the bus, then we will be able to probably log into that bus number, and start viewing the footage to try to assess the situation.
So who has access is my question. Is it Texas Central School Bus Company? Is it us? That's who I want to know. Who has access to that live footage? If I call, I'm a bus driver, and somehow I'm notifying somebody that there's an incident on my bus, and I've hit the button. Am I calling Texas Central? Am I calling LISD? Who's looking?
It would be student services.
So student services, you would be the only ones who have access.
We would have access, I'm assuming, to that portal to where we could log in, and then we can view it, much like what we have with the cameras in the building. There's access, and only a certain amount of people have access to that.
Okay. So we would control that access. That's where I'm trying to understand is who controls
Correct.
the access. So we have a portal that we can go to.
That's
Texas
correct.
Central Bus does not have access to that portal.
As long as we don't set it up that way, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have control on who we provide user permissions to. Yeah.
Okay. And very much like Dr. Bonner, I'm very curious on budget of what it has been. I know there wasn't an expectation, there wasn't any cost, if you will, because they came with the buses. So this would definitely be a new incurred cost for the district, and all the avenues, as you said, of ways to fund it. So with that, there are no other questions.
Ms.
Thank you.
Prosnick, I just want to add one more item on in board book. As Dr. Rapp said, there is cost in there, and when we were referencing bond funds, I want to be clear that what we're referencing is unencumbered 2017 technology bond funds, more specifically.
Okay, so you're referencing 2017, not 2023 or
Correct.
2024?
Correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the clarification. All right, moving on. The finance report, part 2. Dr. Rapp. The
Yes.
sequel's always better.
Thank you, Madam President. All right, so for your consent agenda preview this month, it's of course much briefer compared to last month because you have all those purchases that come to you in August after the board's taken a break in July. You've got 2 new bids and purchases under purchases, programs, and initiatives. You've heard about those tonight from Mr. Fight associated with the bond program. Mr. Martin, I think what I noted was that there are 7 annual purchases on this consent agenda preview, and 6 of those utilize a co-op structure.
Yeah.
So you can, anything else you want to add to that, of course. But one, I wanted to definitely point out the recycling program is an unfunded mandate. As you know, we're required to have the recycling program we have. Our estimated annual expenditures are $125,000, and we do not get funding from the state for that mandate. So with that, I'll turn over to Mr. Martin for any other points of note.
Thank you. President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, Board of Trustees, thank you all. That's exactly right. I did want to highlight that one. I appreciate that. It's unfunded. But the other next 3 items are very technology related. They're annual purchases. They are kind of a spot purchase as campuses, our departments have needs. Over the year, these are brought annually in the fall, and they're predominantly using the annual approved budgets funds. So it is a large amount. They're using cooperative contracts, and as you can see, there's is items that are used by both campuses and departments. And the other 2 are really kind of trying to stay in front of any type of situation where we might have weather damage or issues, flooding or something like that in a campus. So they're really asking for approval, utilizing. We haven't spent $50,000 either in moving services or the general disaster and restoration services. However, by bringing this forth, we would, if something happens, to try to mitigate any additional expenses or damages or interruptions to the education process, that we would have that ability to move forward on that. And then the last is the playground athletic supplies. This is not related to any type of bond purchases. They're just maintenance and upkeep.
Any comments or questions? Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Martin. Next up is the Communications Report and the Board Employee Awards and Recognition Committee. Dr. Rapp, I know you are on this, but I will also recognize Ms. Lasan as the chair of the Employee Awards and Recognitions, chair of the Board Committee.
Yes, so Ms. Brim was unable to be with us tonight, so I'll give an update and then turn it over to the board committee as well for any further thoughts. As you all know, we asked staff last school year to give us input on the final pulse check for ideas of how we could identify budget savings, and this was one of the ideas that was brought forward by multiple staff members and also was identified by the communications department as well and brought forward to the Programs and Budget Review Committee. So we plan to reimagine honoring staff and announcing award winners in a different way other than the traditional banquet setting that we've had in the past in order to be more cost effective for the school district. The proposal would be that we would recognize service pin recipients with 25 plus years or more service at the November and December board meetings. We would recognize Campus Teachers of the Year at February and March board meetings, elementary Teachers of the Year would be in February. Secondary teachers would come to the board meeting in March. And then the winners would receive surprise visits from all of you and our leadership team and myself to deliver awards, recognition signs, and share the good news. So there would still be finalists announced and then surprise trips made to the award winners, and we would still make Teacher of the Year videos that would be produced and shared before the end of the school year. For service awardees between 5 years and 20 years in the organization, and what a lovely opportunity that we have people who've been with us up to 20 and 25 plus years. So thank you to all of our staff for that. But those recognitions would happen at either the department or campus level, and they do those things now. And we all see the invites that come through for retiree recognitions and service pin. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the committee for any final thoughts and talk about the proposal.
Thank you. So my committee members are Ms. Sells and Ms. Alcatib. And so basically we knew we wanted to get away from the banquet and just try something else completely different. We discussed with Ms. Brim and her team, Ms. Host, who's going to be heavily involved in all of this, we want it to still be special. We want everyone, to still get the recognition they deserve without having a big sit-down dinner, like we've done in the past. So this is the way that we left kind of the same. The meeting that we had with Ms. Brim was we're definitely not going to do a banquet, and then we kind of laid out how we wanted to make sure that these different categories got some special recognitions. So we wanted them to be, recognized at some board meetings and, bring that up. And then we're dividing them up, obviously, because otherwise that would be some really long board meetings, knowing that like in May, the board meeting is long anyway, because all of our successful kids get recognized, in May. So this is our, being the first time we've done something like this. There may be some things that change. We may, we're obviously welcome to, any suggestions that you guys may have. But again, we just want to make our employees, feel special, feel recognized in the best way that we can. So there you go. Do you ladies have anything else to add?
Dr. Bonner?
Certainly not a lady, but a curmudgeon. How about that? Real quickly, thank you for thinking about a different way to do this. I'm all for cutting things. I think it's wonderful to cut things, actually. But I just want to make sure that we are communicating it with staff, because just like there were X number of staff last year that said, oh, man, let's get rid of that. We're going to break somebody's heart, bottom line, right? And it's because we don't have any money is why we're doing it. So I appreciate the $100,000 or so that's going to be saved. There's a really old book in education from the 30s called The Saber-Tooth Curriculum. And what it talks about is we just add and add and add things we never take away. And so I'm glad we're taking a little bit away, but I do want to think about how the board is going to take something off our agenda to make room for this, right? Because it's going to be a commitment of time, and I think it's very well spent. But we need to carve a little something out so that we're not up here till 1 o'clock in the morning. Just being truthful and honest with you. Thank you.
I appreciate the work of the committee. I like how you all have spread the love out, if you will, for our staff over the entire year and not just for one night. And I have no doubt that Ms. Taylor will find some sequins in her closet to help celebrate our winners. Every board meeting. I'm now excited to come to board meetings.
And to Dr. Bonner's point, I don't want to be up here to 1 o'clock either. So yes, it will definitely be meaningful, yet short and sweet.
We will be efficient, just like we are with our money. How's that sound? Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the Board of Trustees report, which is really not me. Naming of facilities. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam President and Board. On my committee, we have Doctors Barker and Bonner. See how I put that together? See what I did there? Exactly. The committee did receive a request from a community member, a longtime community member, former Carrollton resident and LISD parent. She's also the current president of CAPCO, and she is requesting the naming of the DeGan Elementary Sensory Room to the Vernell Gregg Sensory Room. The committee met on August 28, 2024 to discuss this properly vetted request, and when we say properly vetted, we work with our Human Resources Department just to make sure everything was in order, proper and in order, and we discussed the recommendation. Just some background information on Vernell Gregg. Everybody knows Vernell, but just to give some background information, she began her career at DeGan Elementary School, and she was its first black teacher. She brought along a fiery passion for education and taught in LISD for several years, many years, before she was elected to the LISD Board of Trustees, where she served from 2006 to 2012. She ultimately became the board president. She made history again in her role on the school board, and I'm happy to follow behind her as she was the first black LISD school board trustee. LISD has formally recognized Vernell's significant contributions to the district, where she started the AVID program and helped create the district's Black History celebrations. According to her lead nominator, Leah Montez, Mrs. Gregg has made a meaningful difference in the lives of many students. This is a small token to honor her rich legacy in education in our district. Again, the committee met on August 28th to discuss the recommendation, and we are bringing this item forward to the board with the hopes that we can bring it forward for a vote at the September meeting next week.
Any comments or questions? I'm just going to ask because I'm required, and I know that Dr. Bonner did this, but Ms. Gregg falls in line with CW local and meets all the criteria. I know you love policy.
She does.
Very good. Thank you so much. Next, the only thing I need to update the board on is I formed a new committee today. It's the Appraisal District Nominating Committee. Dr. Bonner is going to chair. Myself and Dr. Barker are going to serve on it, as we will need to nominate, if we so choose, at the October meeting, and then we will reconvene again to see all the nominees for the appraisal districts and bring that forward to the entire board. With that, there's no further business. This meeting is adjourned. This time is 7:26 p.m. Have a pleasant evening.